from Alliance Productions. This is Singletrack, episode 300. Yes, you heard that correct, 300. This show is brought to you by Electric Cable Car, your daily source of mountain news and updates on the culture and business of trail running. And here is what's happening at Electric Cable Car. We've got the full results for Istria 100 by UTMB. This was UTMB's third event of the 2024 calendar, and Desert Rats, the first in the US for the year, is just around the corner. For the 100-mile distance at Istria, Ida Sophie Hegemann came in second, and I'm working on getting her back on the podcast very soon. Adidas Terex is flexing their muscles. They're finally launching their trail super shoe, the Acrobic Speed Ultra. In a previous episode, I chatted with Marcel Höche about the shoe Tom Evans raced in to win Western States. Adidas Terex is also announcing a sponsorship of the trail events Era Viper acquired in New England. And for the GoPro Mountain Games in Vail, Adidas Terex is the official athletic footwear and outerwear partner and is sponsoring a 20K trail race with a prize purse of $11,500. Wow. Lastly, Western States just updated their doping policy, aligning themselves to official USADA guidelines, which is noteworthy in as such as that results in them actually somewhat relaxing their policies. Are there any other races in the US that have doping policies? I wonder. And finally, while I'm talking about Western States, catch the Trail Running Film Festival in Auburn on Memorial Day weekend as part of Western States training camp. Check our full tour calendar at trailfilmfest.com for more details. Want to stay up to date with everything that's happening in our trail and mountain world? Visit electriccablecar.com, subscribe to the newsletter, and never miss a thing. All right, let me introduce you to our guest for this week's show. Madlen Kappeler is German, or rather Bavarian, grew up in the mountains and with sports in her blood, runs triathlons, and found trails. Madlen went to Florida Atlantic University on a track scholarship, and now that she's back home in Bavaria, runs for Team Germany in the SkySnow World Championship. The SkySnow World Championship just happened earlier in March in Tarvisio in northeastern Italy, and Madlen grabbed the silver in the vertical distance and in the classic distance. In the way this event was scored, it resulted in her getting 4 silver medals for herself and for Germany. I mean, amazing. But let's hear from Madlen. Madlen Kappeler is on Singletrack. I'm super excited. We've been following each other on Instagram for a while now, and you have a super interesting story, and so I can't wait to dive in. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, first off, where are you calling in from? Let's kind of set the scene a little bit.
Yeah, I'm back home in Bavaria, basically in the beautiful Bavaria, Oberallgäu, basically the southest point of Germany, close to Austria. The Alps in front of my doors. It's my paradise.
It's the paradise for a lot of people, and even if you don't live in Bavaria, for a lot of Germans, Bavaria and that corner is the dream paradise. Have your parents always lived there, or are you one of those athletes that moves to the mountains because that's better for training?
No, my parents lived there. I grew up here, and I'm basically very, very happy about that.
Yeah, so you're one of the lucky ones. You don't have to be called what the Swabians would call Reichschmackter.
Oh yes. Exactly.
The I don't even know how to translate that into English. The foreigners that sort of try to pretend that they're home, but they're sort of even after 8 generations, they're still not considered locals.
Absolutely.
Okay, so you grew up over there. So tell us a little bit of how you started, because then you made a really big move when you ended up in a very, very different place in the US. So before we go there, you start running at some point. How did you get into sports? Kind of give us sort of those early journey. As a Bavarian from that corner, I assume it would have been skiing or something.
Well, I think my story is kind of a bit interesting. like when I was little, of course, I'm from a small village, Alps, nature in front of my doors. You're always outside playing around and so on. So I was always an active child. I enjoyed many different things, like did everything basically. But during my school time, I was kind of very, very lazy. I was a lazy person. Like, actually, I didn't enjoy training. However, I enjoyed racing, and I did mountain bike races and cross-country skiing when I was little, like, yeah, teenage, old, whatever. But yeah, I did mountain bike racing, a lot of stuff, but like I didn't really practice because I hated it. I didn't really have a good like team or club, whatever. So I was also only just on my own. So that was kind of like the boring stuff. I also did some like kids runs like once in a while because my parents are also runners. They're doing like trail running basically also kind of, but like yeah, just like and as an average person, like not like highly performance. So yeah, I actually really enjoyed that. I did once a year always like a children's triathlon, like
Okay.
in the next town. That was like basically like this 50-meter through the pool in like in swimming shorts and then hopping on the bike and for 5 kilometers and then 1K run. So that is something I did once a year. So that was basically my introduction to triathlon.
Hmm.
And then after my high school graduation, I was like, okay, mountain biking got too difficult for me because if you're not training it, it's getting more and more difficult, like with the downhills, the trails, and so on. And if you're not practicing it, your head is at some point stopping.
Hmm.
And I didn't enjoy it anymore. So I was like, okay, my mom always told me, hey, I have some talent. I only gotta do something like with it. So I just gotta like kick my ass and like just start training more structure and doing it. Unless I was like, honestly, I want to get something out of myself.
Hmm.
I actually do enjoy sports. So I was like, okay, mountain biking, no. Cross country skiing, no. I hated like this roller skiing in summer, like,
Hmm.
nah, that would never happen. And I hated winter. And I was like, okay, honestly,
You live in the south of Bavaria and you hated winter?
I mean, it's nice once in a while,
Yeah.
but like when it's always cold and
Hmm.
like not a be and if you don't have like, of course, like those beautiful winter days when it's like fresh powder snow and you're like, oh, it's so beautiful, then it's like amazing. But like there are so many days where it's like, oh,
Yeah.
it's
And
you
you
know
have to go out training during those days, right? That's
exactly,
the rough part. Always
exactly.
finding the right kind of
Yes,
clothing
yes,
and sort of getting out there. No, I hear you.
yeah. And so I was like, okay, I took 1 year off, like after high school graduation, like after my high school graduation in 2016. I did a job. I also did like an um, online remote studies for a nutritionist. That is what I did, and I started training. And I was like, okay, hey, triathlon, that would be cool because honestly, running is kind of fun. I enjoy biking, but like on the road, it's a lot more enjoyable and
Mhm.
easier. And swimming, okay, we get that somehow.
Mhm.
And so I,
I like that. We get that. We can figure that part out.
yeah, I mean, I'm still struggling with it, but we're getting through it.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was basically my childhood. And I was like, hey, I want to do something. I want to like get better at sports. And so I was started training. And then I also improved a lot, like fairly quickly, like my running performances. And after that 1 year, I was like, okay, what am I doing now? So,
And this time just self-trained, self-coached? You just
I
followed a plan
I
or
followed a plan, an online plan. So
okay.
like I had no coach like by my side,
Hmm.
but I followed like online plans to get some structure, but I was training basically on my own.
Hmm.
And then I was like, okay, I I need to study. I want to study. I want to study sports science. First, my goal was to go to Cologne to the sports university there. But then I like found like out of nowhere, I got like an email or like an ad. I found an ad like on like sports scholarships in the US.
Hmm.
And I was like, okay, wow, that sounds honestly interesting. I didn't know that something like that is honestly possible. I was like, oh, cool. So
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I'm gonna fill that out. Like, just we will see. I don't know what it is, but it sounds cool. And it's for free to fill that out. So just
Yeah.
do it. I had like no idea behind that.
Hmm.
But the only thing I knew is that I needed a structure, like a set placement, because if you're studying also like in Germany, it's not as easy like as to combine sports studies, and then you should also job somewhere to get some money to pay rent and so on. So it's not easy at all. But I still would train on my own. I'm like, it's hard. Like,
Yeah.
so I didn't know what to do. And then I got a good like feedback. They were like, hey, my run performance is great. Like also for triathlon, they were like, hey, you have a chance for a sports scholarship. So if you would like, we could help you and so on. And then I was talking a lot with my parents. I spoke with the company, and then we were like, okay, I'm gonna try it. So yeah.
So was that then a tryout? So did you basically have to perform in order to be good enough? Like, how take me through that process? It's
It
super
was based.
fascinating.
So it's basically like on your past performances. You're
Hmm.
showing them like what you did, like how fast you run, how like whatever sports you're doing. So then they can estimate, okay, with this and this time, you can have an estimate of like a full scholarship or like
Okay.
maybe like 50%. That's like very various, like that depends on like the university you're going to, on the budget of the coaches and so on. So like the size, yeah, and so on. So many different factors, but like they're basing it off like of your past performances. And so like they have like a ton of athletes, like so they have a good relationship, like okay, how good you have to be to get like a certain amount of scholarship.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Amazing. So before we jump to the US, when you started training, were you at that point thinking about big Ironmans? Were you thinking about Kona? Was that sort of the goal, or what was sort of the North Star that you were sort of directing yourself toward?
Mm, honestly, I didn't know, because my goal was like, I want to become the best version of myself. I want to become the
Okay.
best athlete of myself. And if I would say like a sports related goal, not the Ironman so much, still not now.
Okay.
That's still like kind of a couple of years away. So that's not burning in my mind. It's more the Olympics.
Okay. I
My
like
goal
it.
was like, I want to go to the Olympics.
And to the Olympics for triathlon, meaning or just
Honestly, just the Olympics.
I'm sorry. I'm not trying to press you on this. I'm just sort of
Yeah.
surprised because for me, as somebody who's never really thought about that, I would assume that you would have had to specialize
Yes,
by
yes,
now
that,
already, right? And
yes,
be like super very much focused in saying I'm only running the whatever 400 meters or whatever, right?
yeah. And that is like also, yes, of course, a triathlon, but as my swimming is still my weakness, I think it like as a 1% chance that I can improve my swim that much that I
Okay.
could still have a chance. So the Olympics for the triathlon is probably gone for me.
Okay. Okay. All right. So, so you've got some dreams. You're improving. You're following a training plan. This is going to get serious. You're getting some interest to go to the US. So take me through these next steps. You get your scholarship approved, and how do you determine? Do they say this is the school you're going to go to? Do you pick the school? How do you determine sort of these next steps?
I mean, I think that depends on like how good you are and
Okay.
how many offers you get,
Hmm.
because like of course the better you are, the more offers you get from the coaches, the more you have to choose from. And honestly, like I think average, like not the
Okay.
best, but I was okay, good.
Hmm.
So I had honestly a lot of offers, but I had no idea of like what would be good for me, what not. I also had a lot of triathlon offers, like from triathlon schools, but they didn't convince me because I wanted to have like a good program and also a good like environment, a good location. And those triathlon schools were still so new and like very
Okay.
little. So I was like, no, that's not what I want. So
Mhm.
I was like, hey, I'm going for a mainly track and cross country scholarship,
Okay.
also because they had more budget.
Mhm.
Um, and so in general, and I was like, I want a warm place. That would be my goal. And so I basically got based off that, and I had a good connection to the coach. So my decision fell to Florida
Mhm.
Atlantic University. That's kind of a still very fairly new university, a young university. Yeah, average sports, I would say. But yeah, it's in Florida, and
Far,
so I
far away from the mountains. Now all of a sudden you are completely flat.
yeah. That's I really miss the mountains, but you get the winds instead of that.
Okay. So you're going to Florida. That is then 4 years. For how many years were you there?
I've been 5 years
5 years.
there.
Okay.
Yes, yes. Because I mean there was this COVID year, so
Oh, yeah, yeah,
had
yeah. Okay.
another additional year basically of eligibility, and I finished my bachelor's and master's degree there.
Okay. Super. Quickly technical. What's your bachelor's and master's in?
My bachelor's in exercise science and health promotion, and my master's in exercise physiology.
Fantastic. Super. So you did that. You did that on. Have you ever been to the US before, or was this sort of you've never
Oh,
been and you decide to just go to Florida and figure this whole out? I mean,
yes.
hello, culture shock.
Yes. Indeed.
I mean, we're talking now, you being back home and having completed all of this. I mean, but this is like 5 intense years. Um, 5 years of fully immersing yourself in a completely different culture, country, language, and everything. Far away from home. East Coast isn't that far away from than the West Coast would have been, but still, I mean, you entering a school, not knowing anybody. How did these first few months sort of go?
I mean, it was a challenge,
Yeah.
like overall, like it was a complete culture shock, of course, especially like also like Florida, like the temperature, the humidity. I
Mhm.
never got used to it, but honestly, I think it made me stronger running through that.
Mhm.
But yeah, it was definitely an experience, a unique experience, and got I learned a lot through those 5 years, and I think I definitely got so much stronger personally, especially personally. I think not that much athletically improvement, but like personally, I got so much stronger, and I'm very thankful for that I had that opportunity, even though it was also a lot of challenges. And I was not in my best mental shape, I would say. So it had good sides, negative sides, but overall, I'm very proud and thankful for those 5 years.
Well, and you were able to complete it, right? You went
Yes.
there to get what you wanted, which I mean, ultimately, I mean, these times, uh, college years, they're always tough, right? They're always difficult. There's a lot gets thrown at you. There's a lot of uncertainty, and you sort of have to navigate all of this. And um, what's interesting though is that you're saying that you feel like you didn't athletically get as much out of it. Did is it something that you now decide 5 years after, or did you already notice that throughout your schooling that you feel like, I came here for more and it's not really working out?
I think it was like what I realized throughout the years.
Hmm.
But that I think is just a personal experience,
Okay.
and I would
Okay.
generalize that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, interesting. So, I mean, you make this incredible courageous jump, right? I mean, let's talk about the courage it took for you to go to a completely different country, language, to embrace all of it. You to succeed, you accomplish what you set out to. Now you're back home, and so now the world is your oyster, right? I mean, so you're now a little bit at square one again of saying, I've trained many years, I've gotten my degree. What is next? How do you sort of like move into this next phase?
Yeah, and I'm honestly so excited for this next phase because, like, the past 5 years, of course, I was always back home, like for summer, like 3 months, but oftentimes I was like sick or injured or whatever. So it was like I couldn't fully live that, and I was still like kind of in a cage because you don't have that freedom because you're like bound to it. But now, like, I graduated in May 23,
Hmm.
and that's when I basically came back home. So last year was basically like, okay, adjust it, get back home, like getting used to it, finding your like job and getting to work and so on. And now I'm like in my first full year back home.
Hmm.
So like also like experiencing the winter again,
All of a
experience
sudden appreciating the winter.
yes, yes, like those different
Yeah.
colors. And so I'm like just so excited for everything that is going to come because honestly, I don't know what is going to happen because I don't know what I want. Or, no, I shouldn't say that. I know what I want. I want to get the best out of myself and I want to become a professional athlete. That is my goal.
Okay.
But, like, as you know, I am honestly, like, am a triathlete. So my goal is to get better in triathlon. I'm competing in my first year as an elite athlete in the middle distance of triathlon, so basically 70.3 Ironman.
Hmm.
And my goal this year would be to qualify for the World Champs
Hmm.
in December, which is in New Zealand. That would be my ultimate goal, but that's very, very hard. But on the other side, I'm getting more and more into trail running and sky running and like, yeah, or uphill running. I think I found my love with verticals or just going steep uphill. And I actually enjoyed it a lot. So
You
it's
see,
a deep
this is
passion.
why I have you on the podcast. This
Yes.
is what this all led up to. But I think I'm a bad interview because I probably should have asked you about your actual performances at the school. I mean, you competed for 5 years minus COVID. How was that competing track and cross country and stuff? I'm not a big competition person. That's why I forget to ask. But let's quickly talk about this for 1 minute before we sort of talk about the next phase.
Well, I never had an experience on running on a track, so I basically got thrown
Oh, yeah, yeah. You
into
never ran
running.
with spikes before?
No.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, yeah. Crazy.
Like the first experience running on a track, I mean, honestly, that was indoor track. Like the first race was an indoor track. Like that's even worse. Like that's a 200-meter track
Mhm.
indoors, which is terrible. I really felt like a hamster, like in a cage, like running in circles. That hit very bad. But it was actually a really tough experience, like running track and also cross country in the US. Like that's different like than here running cross country, I think. I mean, I never ran here to cross country as well, so but like from pictures, because in the US you run even like on golf courses, like
Mhm.
that's interesting. But anyway, it was a huge experience, and I definitely had lots of adversity challenges there, but it's like a unique experience. And like running on a track, like doing workouts on a track, that makes you tough. That
Mhm.
makes you really tough. And it was actually enjoyable.
Yeah, how was the competition for you? Because over here in the US, kids start track and cross country at such an early age. So you
Mm.
were meeting competitors who've been doing the sport that you're doing for the first time. They've been doing this for like 10 years. I mean, this must have been a huge uphill battle, not just for you figuring out how the sport actually works, but actually also competing against others, right?
Yes, you definitely like as an outside person, you cannot underestimate like how like that is a different sport and you need to get used to it and you need to learn on like how to actually run on a track because that's not just like running because it is an really an own sport like especially like this tactics and like
Hmm.
because they know how to use the elbows and like
Hmm.
running close or spike someone and so on and you got getting boxed in and so forth and I'm like bro please
Hmm.
get away from me I need my
Hmm.
space.
Hmm.
So it was definitely an experience and sometimes so painful.
Yeah, but also sort of sometimes a painful, but also an experience where it didn't really change your mind, right? I mean, you didn't come out of 4 years running track and saying, okay, I want to go to the Olympics for track, right? I mean, it
No,
was years of,
that was not my case. I mean, it's definitely cool, and but no, never.
yeah, yeah. All right. Enough about that. Let's talk about triathlon and then skyrunning. So, how did you get introduced to skyrunning? I mean, the trails in Bavaria are right out the door, right? I mean, it isn't that far-fetched for you to at some point go on trails. But as somebody who trains for triathlon and has experience with running track and flat, the hills are frustrating because you are so much slower. It's such a different sport, right? I mean, you have to completely adjust the way you think about your performances and everything.
But I think that is exactly the part what's what is enjoyable for me
I
and what
like
I
it.
love, what I hate, what I actually love and what is beneficial for me because I gotta say I am a head case like mental blockades like especially like running on the track like one by one and so on. So I have some mental like challenges, but I think like especially on this uphill, like on like running on those trails off road, that is when I actually like find my freedom, passion, and clear my mind and just do my thing.
Mhm.
And especially those uphills, I think, no, that's just fun to me.
I love the way you describe that, right? Because so many of the ultra professional sports have perfected themselves so much that it feels like you are just a hamster. But trail running as a newer sport and every trail being different, right? I mean, if you're performing, I mean, every mountain trail is completely different.
Yes, yeah,
And so
and
your
exploring
experience,
yourself
yeah,
every
yeah,
time.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's then as much as you're competing and you're trying to give the best about yourself, but you're also competing at others and you're trying to place, it is more of a personal journey, right?
Exactly, exactly. And it's like, especially like in on those trails, like off-road, you're just, it is like also kind of a meditation for me. And like you are finding your journey to the finish and you're always you can challenge yourself a little bit more and but different than on the track, for example.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I like it. I like it. So skyrunning is a very specialized part of trail running, and sort of finding that niche of our sport is a little bit unique. A lot of people come from a cross country and then or from a marathon and then ultra distance or so, right? So how did you discover skyrunning? Because now you're obviously doing this fairly serious.
Mm-hmm. Yes, honestly, I actually got just into it. Like, I don't know, honestly, how. Like, it was just by chance. And I think who brought it up to me was Macy.
Okay.
Um, he was the person who also who wanted to nominate me for the European champs last year in Montenegro for the sky running, and now for the SkySnow World champs. So that was basically my start of it.
Nice. Okay,
I'm still
Mars.
fairly new to everything.
Okay, friend of the show, Marcel, discovered you, introduced you to the sport, and suggested you should try skyrunning. And he is partially playing not partially, he's playing an important role in sort of setting up a German skyrunning team. And that's where you've been performing. And, forgive me for not knowing the exact details, but was it the European Championship? What was just a few weeks ago?
There was the World Championships
The World Championship, perfect.
in SkySnow.
In SkySnow. So SkySnow, it's talking about splintering our sport, right? I mean, SkySnow is a kind of a newer niche of the whole sky running piece, and it's all on snow. And there are a couple different disciplines. One is just a vertical uphill, and then the other one is more. And the distances are fairly short. And you run with spikes. And I am told that is the discipline that the International Skyrunning Federation is trying to pitch to the Olympic Games to be included as an Olympic sport. So a niche of a niche of a niche of a niche, right? So it is very interesting because we think trail running is just trail running and is sort of out there away from all of the other sort of like running sports. But even within our sport, right, there's so many different things. So SkySnow World Champs, the pictures looked amazing. Let's talk about this. It wasn't the first time for you wearing Team Germany jersey. Let's talk about this. How does that feel?
It honestly feels great, and I was so honored, and it was just a great atmosphere like this whole weekend, and I think we all had so much fun, and I can only smile when thinking of that.
So you speak a lot about in your training that you're running for yourself and that you are trying to improve yourself. When you're wearing a national team jersey, does that change? Do you all of a sudden feel the weight of 80 million Germans looking down on you? Luckily, the sport isn't that popular. You're not playing soccer. So, but I mean, how does that feel? I mean, do you still feel like you can run for yourself, or do you feel an additional pressure?
I think I can still run for myself, and I try not to think so much about like what that is for a race or what like performance and so on. So I try to keep it on my like just as a run as what I'm always doing, and just to keep it relaxed.
Yeah, nice. So, SkySnow World Champs. Let's tell us a little bit about that whole weekend. Like walk us through that. So, how many other people were in your team?
Oh my gosh, how many? I don't know. I cannot remember. Like 5, 6, 7.
Okay.
Roundish.
Do you travel there together, or you just meet up when you're there?
Like it was like splitted. Like some came together, but we met all there. We were in the team hotel, so we had dinner, breakfast together, and I mean it was kind of a exciting weekend. Lots of things happening. So like Friday evening was already like the vertical. Saturday afternoon was the classic distance. In the evening we always had the ceremony in the tent with everyone together, which was a great atmosphere. It gives really like family vibes, basically.
Nice. So you ran in both distances, right?
Yes, exactly.
So the vertical, it's a fairly short. Give us the distance and vert.
The vertical was like 3.6 kilometers and an elevation gain of 974.
Okay.
Around almost 1,000.
And you run this at night because that's when the snow is better, or just because the torches and lights look best at night?
I have no idea, honestly, but I think I heard, I was told that the verticals are usually in the night, like Friday evening. Not sure about that, but it was in the evening. Like it was also only like half lighted. Like the first part was like with lights, and the second part was basically dark. So we needed a headlamp, definitely for sure. But yeah, it was short, steep, but fun.
Short, steep, but fun, and you placed really well.
Yeah, and honestly, I didn't know that until the finish. Like, I didn't know that I was on second place.
Amazing. Congratulations. So you were totally in the zone, and it's just uphill, so it's just full speed, full throttle.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I didn't know what to expect, so I was like, let's just start very easygoing, chilly-milly, just getting into the groove. And like in the beginning, I was still kind of fairly in the back, I would say. I just had to find my rhythm and like to see, okay, how can I move as efficient as possible and also as quick as possible. And then at some point, I just found my rhythm. I put one foot in front of another, and I was just going, and I just honestly enjoyed it. Halfway through, our teammates, like who didn't compete, were there and cheered us on. I was like, oh, that's so cool, and so that made me so happy, literally.
Nice.
And I was like, okay, we're halfway through. Like the team support, excellent. So thankful for that. And yeah, then it was only like, yeah, it was so cool. Just like I passed one from our team, and he was like, yeah, I'm on second. And I was like, no, you're lying. That's not true. Like, I didn't believe him because I didn't expect like being like that far in front. But yeah, like on top, that was honestly so beautiful. I mean, it was bad weather, it was snowy, and there was no like, we couldn't see like far, but like there was like a village like on top of this mountain, and it looked so beautiful with those lights. So that was oh,
Yeah.
that excellent atmosphere. Definitely, I think that was Tarvisio, and I think that's definitely worth visiting
Mhm.
at some point
I'll
if
I'll
someone's interested.
link to the race website in the
Yeah.
show notes for people to take a look, because yeah, you essentially finish at the village, and you're sort of running up this hill, and it's
Yeah.
at night, and it's lit up. It looks like a really, really cool and very unique atmosphere. Running on snow, I mean, snow conditions change. Do you have a lot of conversations where what kind of spikes to wear, or how do you sort of make that decision?
I just bought them for this race, and there was
I like it.
so there was not any decision making or something like that. My preparation on snow was limited.
Nice. So what shoes did you run in?
I wore my normal trail shoes. I have some from Adidas, and then I had those crampons like for you put around the shoes
Okay.
basically,
Okay.
and which
And
are
do you use poles for that one or not?
yeah, you can use poles.
Hmm.
And honestly, for that, I would also recommend poles. Even though I never like use poles, like usually I hate running with poles, but like for that, it's definitely recommended because otherwise it would be too like very rough, especially because the snow was like not, yeah, not icy. It was very like kind of
Slushy?
and slushy and muddy sometimes. So it was not actually, it was difficult and exhausting to run there.
Hmm. Um, yeah, that's absolutely amazing. How many runners were at the start total? Do you know how many
I think it was
countries roughly?
a bit more than 200,
Okay.
240, 250, I think.
So you finished second. Obviously, you're super excited. Your team is super excited for you. Award ceremony that night, but then you have to switch gears and immediately think about the next day, right? I mean, it's not like your job is done. You decided to compete in both. So you kind of have to slow down on how much you're celebrating and immediately kind of switch gears and go back into training prep or race prep mode.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I didn't really think much about it. I only was like, oh, I hope I can have somehow a restful night, because usually I never sleep well after a race, and also like especially at night, because I'm a huge morning person, like
Okay.
usually waking up at 5 and going to bed at 8.
Hmm. Hmm.
I'm special, yes, but like, so I was like, oh, it's anyway so late, and so I was like only hoping that I can sleep somehow, and then getting ready for the next day. Yeah, in the morning I woke up feeling okay,
Hmm.
kind of.
When was the race start for the classic race?
It was like at 2 p.m., 2:30,
Oh,
I
okay,
think.
that's
So
good.
it
That's
was
good.
like
So at least
kind
you
of
have enough time in the mornings to kind
enough,
of,
yeah, somehow to get like waking up again and getting somehow ready, or as ready as possible, like as best,
yeah,
because I was pretty dead and tired and exhausted,
yeah.
um, especially also like from this whole travel. But I was like, well, let's see what's gonna happen. I'm just gonna enjoy this race. I mean, it was raining and it was kind of awful weather, but it's still fun, and I was still so excited to run, and I was like, well, we will see.
Yeah. And the classic course is how many kilometers, and Bert?
That was they had a slight change in the course. Like originally it was like 15K. In the
Hmm.
end it was like 17. So
Okay.
not too long, but yeah, it was okay.
Yeah.
And it was like 600-meter elevation gain, like uphill and downhill. Yeah,
Cool. And all on snow.
yeah. It was mostly
Mhm.
on snow.
Yeah.
There was like one or two like times where it was like not on snow. But yeah.
Did you, in terms of like shoes or anything, did you change anything strategically? Did you take poles for that one too?
No,
No.
no poles, nothing.
Okay. So 17K, that is like 8 mile and 9 miles or something like that. Do you then have an aid station in between? How do you do nutrition, or is it short enough for you that you just power straight through?
Um, well, for that, I honestly had nothing,
Okay.
because I was like there was on the top was an like on the top of the hill was like an aid station. I think I took a like a just a like a sip like to drink, but
Hmm.
otherwise I um didn't use anything. That was okay, this distance for me. I had a gel
Hmm.
before the race, but that's it.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, I gotta train this practice, like I gotta practice like this fueling in during race, especially when it's getting longer. But like for that, that's like okay, the amount okay. I can
yeah.
do handle it without.
It's a big conversation for these super long distances, right?
Yeah,
Is to really
exactly.
dial in your fueling strategy, and so it's always a fascinating part of a conversation to see how different athletes and regular folks approach this, right? And obviously the longer you're out there, the more you will need, and the more you will need to think about what, you can't have the same gel for 48 hours straight, right? You need to
Exactly.
rethink, right? But for this distance, it's short enough that you can power through. So no expectations. You go onto the start line. You were already in second place. So did your teammates, are they like, well, you came in second, so now we're expecting you to do just as well? Was there like sort of a pressure buildup of like, hey, we need you to perform well? How do you talk amongst yourselves in the team?
I mean, I think like the team, they didn't put any pressure on me, or at least I didn't feel anything like. And I honestly also had no pressure on myself, because I also didn't expect like doing like as well as I did the day before,
Hmm.
because it was like an uphill and downhill and with some technical parts, and like especially the downhill is not my strength. So that's usually the thing where I often lose some time, because I don't have that practice, I would say. So I was like, we will see what's gonna happen. But yeah, so honestly, I had no expectations. I just want to have fun, and I just went into the race the same as I did the day before.
Hmm. I mean, to be quite honest, that's so surprising to me as somebody who has never been a professional athlete or thought about that level of competition. Um, but I, for myself, especially because I don't think of it, I go into races very intense. I am very focused. I'm very not relaxed. And so for you, as somebody who performs on such a high level, to say that you're so relaxed is quite challenging to me because it makes me think that I should probably relax more as I'm getting into my races. I should probably focus more on enjoying myself and not be so crammed up.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So, and then you end up in a good place again.
Yeah. And honestly, I also didn't know that I was on second place. I was surprised by that as well.
Is that because you just sort of tunnel vision and you don't realize what's going on? Or is it because men and women run at the same time and so there is sort of enough commotion on the trail that it's hard to figure out what place you're
Yeah.
at? I mean, if you would have just a women's race, you probably would be more aware of your placement, right?
Yeah, I think so, maybe, but it's also, I feel like for me difficult to see anything like or to follow the race because it's like, for example, not on a like verified track, like it's going uphill, downhill, you cannot see who's in
Mm,
front of you. It's
mhm,
like spread out and you're like just running on your own, basically. Often, sometimes you don't see anyone, then you're like passing someone maybe, or someone passes you, but you don't know like who's actually like what's the like distance apart of the next person. And honestly, that is something I kind of enjoy.
mhm.
To just, yeah, basically do your own thing.
Especially in comparison to running a 200-meter indoor track
Exactly,
where you're
exactly.
constantly fully aware of where every single person is
Yes,
at
yes.
every
And hearing
moment,
the
right?
blitz from every second and
Hmm.
basically like
Hmm.
getting like knowing too many things you don't want to know.
Yeah. So, but then let me challenge you or ask you that. For you as a competitive athlete, not knowing what place you are, do you feel like, man, perhaps I could have come in first?
That is something I thought about, and I was like, especially on the vertical, if I would have known, okay, it was like because like it was only a couple of seconds like in the
Hmm.
end, like
Hmm.
it was not even a minute in like both like events.
Hmm.
And I was like, whoa, honestly, that's crazy.
Hmm.
And especially like on a first day, if I would have known that it was like so close, like not on the final sprint that I could have beaten her, but like the prior, if I
Hmm.
know okay, there's actually a chance I could have pushed myself a little bit more
Hmm.
because sometimes I am like, yeah, starting to relax, chill a little bit, like because you are getting off track and just doing yeah whatever. But like if you know, oh, it's gonna be possible, so I could have probably get those couple of seconds.
Yeah. Well, you're still young. There's more races coming. That's amazing. So you got basically three silver medals. Did I get this right? Right? In both the events and
Yeah.
then the overall?
Yes. And then also as a team, we got the silver
Oh,
medal.
perfect.
Team
Fantastic.
Germany got second.
Nice. And that is mainly due to your performance. I mean, sure, the other runners are
No,
there
the
too.
others did very well.
No, no, I know.
Was a bit
It is a little tricky the way these placements all work. It's a fascinating system.
yes, it is tricky. And honest, if you would ask me how that works, I cannot explain that.
Amazing. Well, congratulations. That was incredible performance. So now, I mean, it wasn't your first time sky running, and also not first time competitively. Does that change the way you think about your prioritization with triathlon and running? Are you now catching the bug and say, now I need to put all my head all into running?
That's definitely for sure in my head, like, hey, that is something I could potentially also develop a lot, especially because I'm just basically starting also like in a trail. I only have a couple of races like in my like experience, but like honestly not really specifically practicing or training for that. Like the trail races are basically my training
Hmm. Hmm.
to say that. But right now I cannot choose or I cannot prioritize or go for or shoot for only one side. I cannot do this right now because I think I need to give myself a shot for triathlon,
Hmm.
but at the same time, I want to give myself a shot for trail running, sky running, or what so forth.
Hmm.
So, and I still enjoy both sides a lot. And I want to see where I think this year is going to be very, very important um, to see where I'm at, where I can be good at. And this year's my goal to just also enjoy the sports, enjoy the races, do everything I want, like all different kind of stuff, and not box myself into one direction.
Okay.
I know that especially also I don't know, like for sponsors or what so forth, which I don't have yet,
Yeah.
but like they sometimes expect, okay, you're going fully on this road basically, and sometimes they don't combine it like with, okay, I'm good if you're doing also this and here. So
Hmm.
I know this and I'm aware of that. But right now, I'm not at this point, and I think I want to first write my own story and showing that I can do both,
Hmm.
and I think it's gonna show where it's gonna end. I cannot say for sure. I only know that I freaking enjoy running and off-road trails, sky running, and I definitely want more of it.
Yeah, that's amazing. So do you then look at your year and plan it out beforehand and saying, okay, in March I'm running this race, in May I'm running this race? Like you plan it out, or do you have like one race set up and then you see how you do and feel and then you find the next one? How do you plan out your year?
My year's basically almost planned, because I am working with my triathlon coach. I have now a triathlon coach.
Okay.
I mean, I don't see her like in person, but we're messaging and so on. And we basically planned out my triathlon season because I am planning some bigger races like the middle distance
Hmm.
70.3,
Hmm.
and this is something you need to plan. You cannot just do
Jump in.
like every now and then like a such a long race because it is like a couple of hours of intensity, so I need to plan it out. However, my trail run races and so on are still kind of a bit open. I have them in my mind, so I'm gonna add them now slowly into my yearly plan, yearly structure. But overall, it is a planned year.
Hmm. Hmm. So the journey with triathlons is pretty clear, right? The ultimate pinnacle is Kona, right? At some point, you are thinking about the full distance if you run triathlons, but you don't have to. But the same thing is sort of with trail running, right? I mean, we have these shorter distances, shorter races, and there are some athletes who choose to stay only with shorter distances and never really go long. Do you ever think about long runs? I mean, do you think about UTMB or some of these super long distances? Is that something that interests you?
Yes, indeed. But the same like with Kona, for example, not so quick
Hmm.
because I would like to get better and stronger like in the shortest distances. I first want to get the best out of myself like on that distance, like get as fast as possible to make a statement there, and then I would like to move on and not rush basically through this process because I think I'm still kind of fairly young and have that time to like, yeah, to wait a little bit longer to go
Hmm.
long.
What would be the downside of going immediately long? Is it just the training volume? Is it the fear of injury? Or I'm not trying to push you into that direction. I'm
Yeah.
just
I
curious
mean,
what your thought process is around
yeah.
that.
I mean, I definitely know that I have a talent for like endurance stuff. So I think the long stuff is definitely beneficial for me. That's something I think I'm good at it, but like especially on the running wise, my or my run volume is not high. I
Hmm.
run like 40, maybe 50 kilometers a week to the most. And if you want to go like actually long running, you also sometimes need to practice like those long stuffs and you gotta increase your volume. And I think I don't want to do this right now.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I'm not trying to pressure you into that. I'm sort of just curious what your thought process is in all of this. Is the like for me, as somebody who's non-competitive, I look at certain events and I want to participate in the atmosphere. I see either it's the specific terrain, a specific, it's almost like a vacation race, right? Where I'm sort of, I would love to run there because it looks really beautiful, or I want to be part of this atmosphere because I just want to experience that once. Is that something that you think about too? Or are you approaching this more from a training focus and competitiveness perspective?
I think it's to an extent both, because of course the landscape and so on is always like, yeah, always important needed, but also like on a competitiveness side. Of course, I also like to go somewhere where good competitors are, where it's like a good elite field, because I want to like compete with them and see where I'm at, like with others, and I don't want to compete like basically with myself and just like run on my own. I want to have a good field, good strong field, and I'm rather like place 15, 20th, but have like excellent athletes like around me.
Hmm.
Um, but on the like compared to like winning a race, but like with 6 minutes like ahead of someone. So I'm definitely also looking into that.
Hmm. I'm going to ask a challenging question now. Is in your performance, how knowing that trying to be a professional athlete at some point means um, in inviting that sponsorship conversation, how do you sort of mm, walk this line where performance is all supposed to be all about your athletic performance, but you also sort of know that if you place really well at a competitive event, sponsors will notice you. Is that something that sits in your head? Is that something you think about and evaluate? Like, do you say, I need to run that race because the sponsors are potentially more paying attention to this race versus that race over there?
Mm, I think, of course, I think about that, but I think it's not a factor like that
Mhm.
actually plays currently in any role.
Mhm. Well, that's good. It's great to hear, right? I feel
Yeah.
because I
I
feel for you as an athlete where your body, your physical performance is so much your work, is so much your profession, right? It's to be able to sort of navigate this um is such a challenging road to take. And so it's good to hear that you're aware, but you feel like it's not affecting you.
Yeah, no. I think it's definitely still more just about like where's the performance, where do I want to run, where do I want to compete, and what I think is yeah best for myself.
Mhm. Do you feel like I'm just going to stay with the hard questions here for one moment here? Do you feel like, especially if you're looking at other athletes who sort of have the sponsorship thing kind of wrapped up, how much of it is performance based and how much of it is sort of the value of the marketing? Meaning, if you have a really big Instagram following, it will be easier to um, get sponsorship attraction.
Yeah, that is honestly a very good question, and I think that's coming up more and more like to talk about. And I think definitely that like the value, the marketing is, or especially social media, TikTok, and so on, is definitely very, very important in that case. And I think that especially for this kind of sport, or especially, or also like for middle long distance triathlon, you need a good social media appearance value in order to keep and get sponsors.
Yeah, yeah. Is it something that you talk with other athletes about? Do you talk about the challenges and pressures and strategies around sort of positioning yourself online? How much to sort of show of your personal life and how much you sort of make it a wall, a clear barrier. This is my online persona
Mhm.
and this is me actually as a real
Yeah.
person.
I haven't really talked about a lot with them, with other athletes, but I mean, you definitely realize and analyze it basically on like
Mhm.
what they're doing, like how their strategic is, and like you're definitely getting more and more an understanding of like what's happening and what works basically. And I think you as a person, you just get to like I think it's important to stay true to yourself and do your thing,
Yeah.
write your story, and like not get into too much into like those stuff.
Yeah, yeah. But on the other side, it's also good to learn, right? I mean, it
Yeah,
it, it
especially.
used to be the same before social media. You had to have sponsor appearances, right? And you had to show up at interviews and autograph events or whatever, right? I mean, and you also had to sort of play a role as part of as part of your contract, right? So I mean, in some respects, it's shifted a little bit, but it hasn't changed that much, right?
Yeah.
Well, super. So, final questions. What's the next race? What's the next event you're training for?
Mm, I mean, my next race or official season start is going to be in May. That's gonna be a duathlon, run,
So you
bike,
don't
run.
have to swim.
I don't have to swim. Very excited about that. Duathlon European Championships. Um, 10 run, 60 bike, and 10 run again. Also
Okay.
kilometers,
Hmm.
66, 60, 10. And that's going to be the European Championships in Germany, in Alsdorf. That's near Cologne, I
Hmm.
think.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, that's gonna be my first, honestly, yeah, season highlight.
Come on, you just were at the World Championships for
Yeah.
SkySnow Skyrunning. Don't tell me that, that you haven't started your season yet.
Yeah, that was the first start.
Yeah, well, super cool. All right, so you've got a little bit of time to prepare yourself for that. I wish you all the best in your training and hope that everything goes well leading up to that. No injuries or anything that you can really fully dive into that. I also wish that all the sponsors are listening to this podcast and are gonna be knocking on your door as soon as I hit publish on this one. Um, yeah, Madeline, thank you so much for coming on Singletrack. It was an incredible pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you so much. I'm very excited about that.
Thank you, Madeline, for this incredible fun chat. And thank you, dear listeners, for joining us. To learn more about Madeline and to follow her, check out the links in the show notes at singletrack.fm. This is Singletrack, and I see you over on Electric Cable Car for daily trail and mountain news. I'm your host, Matthias Eichler, saying auf Wiedersehen und tschüss.